Live and pre-recorded, this is the Red Ticket Blues podcast. I am Brian Buckley. This is being recorded on December 10th. To hit the internets on December 11th, you can always listen to the show on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube, and follow me at Brian Buck 13. So today's a special podcast. We have Rusty Simmons, who is the Golden State Warriors beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. I was lucky enough to chat with Rusty about this unbelievable season by Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and the rest of the Warriors because they don't lose games. So as promised, we have Rusty Simmons, who is the Warriors beat writer for the San Francisco Chronicle. Rusty, welcome to the Red Ticket Blues podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So my first question has to be, you must be running out of things for storylines when it comes to a team that never loses.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That you do run out of stuff, but what I've found is that the readers can't get enough of this team, and it doesn't matter what you say. If it's Steph Curry's lunch meal or his plans for naps, if you're writing about the Warriors and Stephen Curry, people are going to eat it up and read it.
You know, I'm in New England, and I'm sort of surrounded by the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the Celtics, Knicks, and Nets. So for me and anyone else that don't get to see the Warriors on a nightly basis, I know it's a broad question, but why exactly is this team still undefeated?
I think mostly because they care about each other. I've covered a ton of Warrior teams and groups that were mathematically eliminated by the All-Star break, and I know in a five-man sport that one guy can make a huge difference, but I really do believe in locker room integrity, and I think this group really likes each other, plays for each other, hangs out with each other off the court, and I think it shows up on the court. I think that's the reason they're different than everybody else. Obviously, Stephen Curry is a game changer, but I think the reason why they're so good is because they like each other and play for each other. That sort of leads into my next question in a certain way here. I mean, you see them day in and day out, this streak that just doesn't seem to end. I mean, is this now a driving force for them as a team when they lace them up every night? I think it is. Most of them are hoop heads. They watch basketball all the time. A lot of them know the history of the game. And they said at the beginning of the season when they were chasing 15-0 as the best start ever, that they weren't really going after it until they got to 12 or 13. But as soon as they got to 15, I think they've been chasing 33 as their record streak, and I think they've been chasing 72 as the best season ever. This is a group that likes goals, that likes the history of it. And I don't think they're scared of any of it. 2 years ago, Stephen Curry wrote on a grease board a record that they wanted to go after, and everybody wanted to go after it with them. They're not scared of stuff. They chase it. You know, we're talking about this year's streak and everything, but I just want to go backwards just for a second here. I mean, this team's riding off the momentum of winning a championship last year, the first in 40 years for the franchise. In your opinion, against the Cavs last year, do you think the Warriors still take home the trophy if all the Cavaliers are healthy? Yeah, I think I probably have a little bit different opinion here on most people. I think the Warriors would have actually had an easier time if Kyrie and Kevin Love were healthy. What the Warriors did a lot in that championship series was run a 1-4 pick and roll. And Kyrie and Kevin Love are not the best defenders in the world. No. Dova and Tristan Thompson are actually probably better defenders by most people's standards. And still the Warriors won that way. I think they would have had an easier time in the finals if Kyrie and Kevin Love had played. And I know that's outlandish to say, but I think that's probably the way it would have been.
Yeah, I haven't heard many people say that, but I definitely did hear a lot of people say that the Cavaliers, in a weird way, were a better team without Kevin Love because of that defensive deficiency. But all right, that's your opinion. Let's see. Speaking of injuries, a few weeks ago, LeBron James said about the Warriors, they've been the most healthy team I've ever seen in NBA history. Of course, that scenario has changed a little bit with Klay Thompson's recent injury, but getting back to LeBron's comment, I guess you sort of answered it. Is that sour grapes is a legitimate point, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, I think last year LeBron actually has a really good point. You know, analytics say that the Warriors were one of the healthiest teams ever. Last year, they rested their guys at the right times. They do a lot of stuff with sports science and really try to watch what guys are eating and how they're working out. All of that stuff lends to it. But they were super healthy last year. This year, I don't think the argument has much stance because, one, they're without their head coach, the guy who brought a championship culture to the team. And two, they've missed Bogut now. They're starting center for 7 games. They've missed Harrison Barnes. They're starting small forward for 6 games. I think Klay Thompson is probably going to miss a little bit of time. They're starting shooting guard. So they're right back in the mix with everybody else where their guys are going to miss time. And still they find ways to win. Andre Iguodala said that the other day. That even if a guy shows up for a shoot around, he's a little bit out of it. He's not quite being as focused as the Warriors want him to be. They have 5 or 6 guys who will step up in his place, and I think that's what makes the Warriors different. Is that their depth is so good that they feel when the other guy can't do it, and somebody else steps up.
Yeah, that's a deep, deep bench there. Bring up Klay Thompson. If he's not ready to go tomorrow night, that being Friday night against the Celtics, who do they particularly need to step up?
Yeah, it's a whirlwind of who goes next. The Warriors are really good at that. By the way, they're the next guy up. They have that mentality, but they're in a tough situation here. Their second shooting guard is Leandro Barbosa, who's been sick, missed the last game and the last 2 practices. And their third shooting guard is already in the starting lineup. He's starting for Brandon Rush at small forward. So if everything goes against the Warriors, Ian Clark would be the starting shooting guard on Friday against Boston. And you know, a lot of the fans back in Oakland, the Bay Area, San Francisco would think what's going on, but the Warriors have this mentality, the next guy up, and maybe Ian Clark shows off in that situation.
Yeah, the deep bench is definitely going to be tested if Thompson can't make the lineup there. It looks like, you know, from just a viewer like myself or anyone else, it looks like Draymond Green is probably the most passionate player on the Warriors. But is there an emotional leader on the team that stands out from the rest?
Oh, I think you hit on it. I think Draymond is that guy. Vocal, emotional, passionate, whatever you want to call it. He's that guy. He's the alpha of the Warriors. And that's something they were searching for a long time. As good as Steph Curry is, and as good of a leader as he is with the way that he practices and the way he plays, the way he's an example on the court, it's not innately comfortable for him to talk about it. And Draymond Green is not scared to say anything.
No, he's not.
And what he says is usually right. So he's the voice box of the team, the passionate guy, the emotional guy. I think they needed that alpha really bad, and he's filled that role.
You know, we all saw Steph Curry at Davidson. We know how amazing he was there, but with the lack of size and nagging injuries early on, did you foresee this rapid maturation to MVP? I mean, this quickly become this great of a player?
No way. I was talking about when he had the back-to-back ankle surgeries, I was talking about him not being that athletic but such a good shooter that he could still delve out like a 10-year career by standing in the corner and shooting threes. I was talking about him being a 7th or an 8th man. I mean, there's no way that I would have thought that he was going to be the MVP of the league, let alone maybe even the number 1 player on his team. I talked a lot about him being a player magnet, a guy who would go to, you know, Team USA camps and talk players into coming to Golden State. To see the way that he's changed his game and transmogrified his athleticism is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about, you know, maybe even the best player on his team. If I told the casual or big-time NBA fan, for that matter, that the guy who makes $11.3 million on the Warriors, I mean, again, we're not basketball players, but $11.3 million in the NBA on the Warriors is their most important player. That person will probably say, well, how is Draymond Green the most important player? When in reality, the contract belongs to Steph Curry, who is ranked 57th in top NBA salaries in the NBA, which is mind-boggling when you think about it.
Yeah.
You've been the Warriors beat writer for the Chronicle since 2009. You've seen his entire career. Does Curry play day in, day out with sort of a chip on his shoulder in that way?
Yeah, he's an interesting one because some of the greats ever, like think of Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech. Like he had a list of people who doubted him, right? And those were the people that he was thinking, like for that constant motivation to be great. Kobe Bryant is similar. A lot of the superstars of the league kind of create this straw man all the time where they're fighting against these doubters. And Stephen Curry is not that way at all. And he has a ton of reason to be that way.
Right.
In high school, he was too slight and nobody wanted him except for Davidson. When he went to the pros, everybody thought that he couldn't pass and couldn't be a point guard. So Minnesota takes 2 point guards in front of him. Then he starts hurting his ankles, and everybody says, he's another Grant Hill, Elton Brand story. And then he beats that. And so he has a lot of reasons to think that way. But I don't think he does. He's kind of a happy guy, a guy who thinks that most people that he meets are going to be genuine and support him. So he goes about it a different way. He thinks the game is really fun. And that's why he works harder at it than everybody else, because it's fun for him. And that's what makes him able to come back from 2 ankle surgeries. That's what makes him able to be among the conversation as one of the best players in the league right now.
I completely forgot about Minnesota taking Johnny Flynn. I remember Ricky Rubio.
They haven't forgotten about it yet.
No, I'm sure they haven't. The most peculiar element surrounding this 23-0 start is the coaching situation. Head coach Steve Kerr has not manned the helm for a single game due to back surgeries, and interim coach Luke Walton is now coaching the team with the best start in the history of the NBA. This is sort of a silly question because no one actually imagined this, but was there some sort of expectation for Luke Walton when he stepped in to coach his first game?
I think the expectations were probably not very high. Luke Walton is a sensation. He obviously, even during his playing career, everybody thought that this guy's going to be a coach eventually. Kobe Bryant had this brilliant talk the other day after a game in Oakland where he said that Luke Walton sees the game in sequences. It's more beautiful than somebody seeing the game as chess versus checkers. He sees it in sequences that nobody else can ever see. Everybody knew Luke Walton was going to be a good coach. But I think this quickly is probably a shock to most people. Last year, Steve Kerr relied on Alvin Gentry and Rod Adams, guys who have been around the league forever. And then finally, there was Luke Walton and Jaron Collins. And in a year's time, Luke Walton has gone from that to being the lead assistant to being the interim head coach. And that's shocking. But he's figured out a way to do this where he's still the confidant to the players, and he still respects what Steve Kerr is doing and still gives him all the credit. It's a remarkable job that he's doing right now. He's juggling a lot of things.
Yeah, I know there may be people that say, oh, well, what do you expect? He's a coaching a team that just won the NBA championship. Regardless of that, his stock is just rising and rising with every game, no matter even if Kerr came back tomorrow. Luke Walton won November Coach of the Month with an astounding official record of 0-0.
Right.
I know you deal with both guys, Kerr and Walton, so I'm not going to put you on the spot what the rules should be. But do you think the NBA needs to take a second look at how they approach situations like this?
You know what? I don't think coaches really care. It's interesting. So I covered Don Nelson as he was chasing being the all-time winningest coach. And I think right at the end, like right when he was within a game or two, that it became something. And I'll remember forever that when he tied the record, they didn't have any champagne in the locker room. We were in Minneapolis, and so the players doused him with Fresca. So, there are things like that probably when you get right down to it, you get close to something that's historic, that they probably care. But Luke Walton doesn't care if he's 23-0 or 0-0. And he constantly gives Steve Kerr credit for being the guy who hired him. And Steve Kerr is the exact opposite way. He constantly gives credit to Luke Walton and says there's no way we'd be 23-0 without him. He's changed the way we're doing this. So I think that's probably the mark of a coach, a guy who gives credit to somebody else, who's not paranoid about somebody else giving credit, and who knows that they're the smartest guy in the room. And I think that's what both these guys are doing right now.
I tend to agree with you when it comes to NBA coaches. It seems like their egos are a few levels down. When you look at certain college coaches, I'm not going to mention the names, but there's situations where they haven't been there, or they look at it the other way and they get the NCAA to credit the interim coach with the losses because they don't want it on their record. But I think you're right. When it comes to the NBA, it's a superstar-driven league. I think these guys just want to get the job done. So that's a great point. We're recording this on December 10th. The Warriors play their finals opponents, the Cleveland Cavaliers, on Christmas Day. That's no secret. It seems to be the buzz right now. They have 5 games to play before that matchup. Will they be undefeated?
I predict every day they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose to Boston on December 11th. And if you don't post this until December 12th, I think they're going to lose to Milwaukee.
I'm going to post it tomorrow.
Their first game home is against Phoenix. I think they're going to lose that one. I think they're going to lose every game. The coaches constantly remind us that they're going to start resting people at some point.
Right.
I know in watching basketball for all these years, there's going to be a day where their three-pointers don't fall. There's going to be a day where people are sick. There's going to be a day where something goes wrong. And they just haven't had any of those days. And any time one of those days started to creep up, somebody has stepped up and been outstanding. It's usually been Steph Curry, but sometimes it's Iguodala, sometimes it's Thompson, sometimes it's Mo Speight. Sometimes it's been off the wall. It's been Leandro Barbosa. This team has proved me wrong every day, but I'm going to keep predicting they're going to lose every time.
I think if they can beat the Celtics tomorrow, which I really think are going to give them a run for their money, I think they're going to get to Christmas undefeated. And you bring up that, they're going to have to start resting players. And you brought up earlier in the podcast that they're looking at 72 wins. Just to remind everyone how great that Bulls team is, the Warriors would have to go, 40. Oh, I just lost the math. Wow. That was embarrassing. Anyways, that's about it. I really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. This is Rusty Simmons. He covers the Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. You can follow him on Twitter, Rusty_SF Chron, CHRON. Rusty, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So my math is slightly subpar. I get it. You don't need to tell me. But I want to thank Rusty Simmons from the San Francisco Chronicle for coming on. He's got an interesting theory of heading into every game, predicting that the Warriors will lose. And maybe one day he'll actually be right. But much appreciated visit by Rusty Simmons. You can always listen to the show on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube. Follow me at BrianBuck13 and at Red Ticket Blues. Like us on Facebook and leave a review. You're somewhere listening. Leave a review. It's much appreciated. You owe it to me. I'm out of here.